Yay! This would be Wednesday, January 7th. Let's make sure the screen doesn't freak out. We're going to go over Fable notes. So this would be you in the new notebook. Let's see, go in there. I was afraid you'd flip out, stupid. Refocus. There we go. Crossing out the old table of contents. If you've not done that, crossing out. There we go. Out the old table of contents. Crossing out your dead pages. And then new entry, which would be the Fable notes on the homework side. For those of you who were dead yesterday, see, we're trying to help you out. Hey, look at that. You're good to go. Next week, as I mentioned, what is it we're going to start doing?
Speeches.
Nice. Speeches. We'll start speeches next week. And our new book reports, so make sure you have a book for that. If not, we'll give you a chance to go to the library, stuff like that. We only have 2 book reports left.
Yeah.
One next week, and then one more after that. And then that'll be it as far as that goes. And then we're good to go from there. Eddie?
I'm reading a book in social studies, so am I allowed to use that for this class?
Yes, but I have to fail you. Because if you're doing it for social studies, it can't be for the book reports. You could try, though.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we start the book?
Yeah, that's fine. Fables. Did we get a chance to even talk about Fables yesterday?
No.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
You started, then you never finished.
Yeah,
With-
just talked and talked.
With-
It's a learning. We kind of just talked and talked. That's what you told us.
Fables have been around for a long time. You're familiar with them, whether you know you're familiar with them or not. Basically, they started a long time ago. Kids were stupid. I know, you're looking around. What's changed? They were even more stupider than they are now because we didn't have school. Kids just sort of ran around just being stupid all over the place. And the problem with that was the old people would see the young kids running around with large rocks and just hitting each other in the heads with the rocks, just thwack, and just dropping them down. And the old people were like, you can't do that. You're going to kill someone there. Thwack. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you just killed John. And so the old people had to find a way to get the kids to learn. But kids naturally resist learning. So they had to trick the kids into learning. And they would trick the kids into learning by telling them stories. And that's where fables come in. Fables existed for the sole purpose of trying to trick kids into learning. And so it is going to be a short little story with the whole idea of it to make you a smarter person. There are 3 types of fables we're going to take a look at. I've set my notes up into a little T-chart thing. Don't split it equally in half because you're going to have one side with a whole bunch of information and then one side with a little bit of information. So that side does not need to be very big. So hopefully that helps you out. Because I've seen kids like splitting the paper down the middle and they're like, I've squished everything on the right-hand side. So don't be the kid hitting other kids in the head with rocks. Types of fables. The first one we're going to look at is called traditional. It's the one that's been around the longest. Pretty much any fable you can think of is going to be a traditional fable. And for those of you like, Ms. Brovicast, I can't think of any fables, we'll help you out a little bit. So the traditional fables, it's going to deal with animals out in the woods doing learning things of one kind or another. To give you an example, the fable that most kids are familiar with is the one about the tortoise and the hare. Here's the speedy version. You have a turtle and you have a hare, a rabbit, and they're in the woods when the turtle challenges the rabbit to a race, and the rabbit's like, seriously, you're a turtle. And the turtle's like, whoa, I can do it, have faith, yo. And so they decide to have a race, and they go out to the woods, and the owl comes over because owls are good at trying to help people. And the owl says, all right, I'll do the 1, 2, 3, go. And they take off running down this path in the woods as fast as they can go. Well, the rabbit, dust comes flying up, and he's like, phew, and takes off. The turtle's like, phew, and dust goes nowhere. It's the turtle. It just sits there and it's like, it's the turtle. Well, the rabbit goes so fast, it gets so far ahead, it gets bored with all this running and decides to do what anyone would do when you're beating someone in a race, and that is take a nap in the middle of the road. And so the rabbit just lays down, it's like, sleepy time, and just lays down to taunt the turtle because it happens all the time in races. And so while the rabbit's sitting there sleeping, the turtle just keeps doing his turtle thing. Turtle, 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 turtle. And eventually, the turtle goes right past where the rabbit is sleeping without making a sound, because everyone knows turtles were the first ninjas. And the turtle goes right past him, and the rabbit never even wakes up, and the turtle gets all the way to the finish line, and all of a sudden the rabbit wakes up and looks around and is like, where's the, oh, turtle! And sees the turtle, takes off running and dives, and does not make it, falls just short, and the turtle steps across, looks down, and is like, ha ha! And the rabbit learns a lesson. And for those of you who have heard the fable before, what is the moral of the story?
Slow and steady wins the race.
Slow and steady wins the race. Mr. Brovicast, that doesn't make any sense. I know, but it's the way it is. The idea that you should take your time. It has nothing about taunting people and sleeping in rows, which I think should be the much bigger moral, but whatever. So that would be how a fable works out. Well, eventually we decide to mix things up a little bit, and we're going to introduce a new type of fable called a verse fable. A verse fable is very similar to the traditional one, but it's going to be written differently. It is written like a song, but there's no music.
A poem?
Nicely done. It's written as a poem. So anytime that you have a song without music, it's just a bunch of lines that rhyme. Oh, that's just a poem. You're so fancy. And it's just written out as a poem. So a verse fable is the same thing. It's just all rhyming. To give you an example, I'll give you a really bad example. Here's the tortoise and the hare as a verse fable. One day there was a turtle and a hare, and the turtle said, "Let's race from here to there. Let's see which one of us is faster, because if you beat me, it'd be a disaster. We're going to run from here to that tree. There's no way you're going to beat me, baby." They went off for a run, and the hare said, "This is so much fun. I'm going to lay down and take a nap." And then he looked up to see the turtle was winning, and he said, "Oh, poop." And slow and steady wins the race. And so that's not my strong skill set. And so that would be why I don't do freestyle rapping. And so that will show you how the first fable works. And then finally, the third one is called modern. For those of you who have watched your ABC shows and are familiar with your Modern Family, you should be familiar with what the word modern means. Does it mean weird? No. But I understand why you would think that. What does the word modern mean? I'm going to introduce you to a very technical word.
Up to date.
Today-y. So modern means it uses today-y stuff. So a modern fable is where we're going to introduce like schools and cell phones and Facebook. Not Facebook, that's traditional fables. Instagram, no one uses Facebook anymore, that's ridiculous. And so that same fable told as a modern one, now you have the rabbit who is, a 7th grader at Forest Junior High, and he's on the track team, and he's walking down the hallway strutting his little rabbit stuff, when he bumps into the turtle and gives like a little shoulder, and like whacks into the turtle spins around, he's like, "Hey, that's not very nice, like, let's have a race." And the rabbit's like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Yeah, after school, well, best, 3 o'clock, meet me at the track." I'm like, "All right." And they head out to the track after school, and the giraffe shows up because why not? It's a school. And so this tall kid, 8th grade basketball player, giraffe, shows up, and the giraffe's like, "All right, 1, 2, 3, go!" And they take off just running as fast as they can, and the turtle's just like, "Turtle!" And doing his little turtle thing, and the rabbit's like, but halfway around the track, the rabbit sees like the squirrel cheerleaders off to the side. He's like, "Hey." And the squirrel cheer's like, "Flippy, flippy, flippy." And he decides to go over and talk to the squirrel. Goes over and talks to the squirrel cheerleaders, like, "What's up, babies?" And they're like, "How you doing?" And they're doing a little talky thing back and forth. The turtle's just like, "Turtle, turtle, turtle, turtle." And eventually, all of a sudden, the squirrel's like, "Hey, aren't you like in a race or something?" He's like, "Whatever." They're like, "But I think he's getting ready to cross the finish line." He turns around, he's like, "Oh, turtle!" And takes off running as fast as he can. Right as the turtle steps across the finish line, the rabbit's like, "No!" And all the rabbit's friends run out there and take pictures of him and post on Instagram and make fun of him, and then they all get expelled for cyberbullying. And so that would be an example of the modern version of the same thing. Yay! So now you've been introduced to all 3 types of fables. In order for a story to qualify as a fable, the most important thing it has to have is it has to make you smarter. And that's where a moral comes in. Because what's a moral?
The lesson.
It's the thing that makes you smarter. So a moral is the lesson learned. It can be slow and steady wins the race. It can be an observation on human nature. If you hit your friends in the head with heavy rocks, you'll kill them. It can be just general advice. Don't jump off of cliffs because you'll go splat. Or if you cheat in class, make sure the teacher can't catch you. Or something along those lines that are going to make you an overall smarter person. Then kids will ask, "Well, Mr. Brovicast, is Cinderella a fable?" And I'll say, "That's a good question. let's give you 5 characteristics so you can figure out what stories qualify as fables. So there's 5 characteristics that go into making a fable a fable. The first, most important one is the one we just covered. What does it fables have to have?
Moral.
If it does not teach you something, it is not a fable. Fables existed to make us smarter. If not, it's just a weird story some creepy old guy is telling you. Hopefully not on the internet or in a white van without windows. Then, once we have the moral to make you a better person, the next most important one is we have to have characters that kids are going to pay attention to. Because once again, kids are naturally reluctant to learn. They have a repulsion to it. And so because of that, we have to trick them into learning with characters. Disney learned this, and there's certain characters kids will flock to. And aside from princesses, what type of characters will kids flock to?
Simba.
Simba is a
Lion.
animal. Good job. And so, animal, yes, that's all Disney uses are lions. Good job. Or the fact that animals is what they're trying to aim for. Because kids dig animals. They're small, they're fluffy, they're made out of meat, and they're delicious. And so, animals should be either made, what, you don't eat meat? They're delicious.
No.
And so,
One
you're missing out.
doesn't.
Yeah. Yes, dear?
So wait, hold on. Did Disney make Big Hero 6?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a robot.
Yes, I'm aware.
Animal.
Your robot
But it's big
recognition
and
skills are
fluffy.
strong.
Well,
Number
like
a marshmallow. Okay, Maddie, what about the
If you
robot
want a
cat?
kid to pay attention to your story the whole way through, from beginning to end, and not turn around to lose points, too late, it already happened. In order to pay attention the whole way through, how long should your fable be?
Short.
Exactly. I'm sorry, Ms. Brovicast, I stopped paying attention. What was the last one? Exactly. So it has to be short in order for the kids to pay attention. If not, they're going to tune out halfway through your story about why you shouldn't hit kids in the head with rocks. Number 4, if we're trying to get kids to learn, the best way to get them to learn is to try and make them smile while they learn. The less boring it is and the more humorous, and you can add in funny stuff, the more likely they are to learn. So typically fables should be humorous or funny. Not knock-knock joke kind of funny. Not, what did the squirrel say to the fish? You're all wet. Not like that, but just try to avoid depressing situations. Don't have like, my fable is about a badger. He has cancer. All his hair is falling out and he's a... No, that's really depressing. So we're going to try to aim away from that. So you want uplifting and upbeat things. And unless you just really like cancer, then you probably have issues. And so try to avoid that area. And the last one, number 5, you're never too old to be stupid. So because of that, they're enjoyed by people of all ages. You never know when on YouTube you're going to see some old person saying, hey Billy, watch me do this. And you're like, you could use a fable about why you shouldn't jump off of buildings using a chute as a parachute. And so it's the same idea about stupid people are all ages. The good news is we finished the first screen. The bad news is we have 2 more screens.
Yay!
So much more fun learning to come.
We have time?
We have a person, well, it's going to bleed over till tomorrow. It's that cursed thing about being able to sleep in. There's one person we have connected to Fables who is known as the father of Fables, the most important of all the fabulous people who are out there. Not Dr. Seuss. Aesop, nice to know. A-E-S-O-P, Aesop. Almost any time that you look up Fables, he'll be the person that's connected to them. He made Fables famous. Died just a couple years ago. He lived from 620 to 560 BC. It was a good funeral. I hung out there. Lots of good food. And so he was a guy from Africa, was a kid at the time, was hanging out, having a good time, and he was the one that paid attention whenever the old people told the fables and told the stories in town. He would pay attention. Whenever the kids were going around hitting each other in the head with rocks, Aesop was the one that paid attention to the stories afterwards. Well, one day, Greeks came in and conquered his whole area. And when the Greeks conquered an area, they would take back anyone that survived as slaves. Actually, they gave them a choice. They said either A, we can kill you, or B, you can come back as a slave. We're happy either way. And most people are like, oh, I'm going to choose the not death option. And that's what Aesop did. He's like, oh, I'm going to do the thing where you don't kill me. They're like, good choice. Now, with Greeks, their slavery was different than American slavery. where American slavery was a bit more based on hatred. With the Greeks, it was more on the fact that when they conquered a country, they wanted to assimilate people and bring them back into their group. And so they did not care what race you were. They had people of all races as their slaves. And, more importantly, you could earn your freedom. As soon as you proved that you were a worthy member of society, then you could earn your freedom as a Greek slave. Well, he goes back and starts telling these stories when he's back in Greece. He sees kids running around hitting each other in the head with rocks. And Aesop's like, hey, you shouldn't hit each other in the head with rocks. I'm like, why not? He's like, because you're going to kill each other? I'm like, prove it. He's like, have you heard the story about the rhinoceros and the bull? They're like, no. He's like, come here, kids. And the kids come over there and he telling the story about why you shouldn't hit your friends in the head because the rhinoceros, because it's a great story. And anyway, the kids are like, oh, that's awesome. And so eventually the kids stop hitting each other in the head with rocks. And they go off and have fun, and they see their friends out in their fields hitting each other in the head with rocks. And the kids are like, hey, don't do that. And the kid's like, why not? Thwack. And they're like, you just killed John, that's why. They're like, let me tell you the story about the rhinoceros and the moose. No, the rhinoceros, oh, come back. There's this old guy who tells a great story. And they come back there, and the Aesop's like, fine, I'll tell you the story again about the bull and the rhinoceros. I'm like, oh, bull, that's what it was. And so he goes through and tells them the story. And eventually, he becomes well known in this whole area for telling stories, to the point that the emperor's kids find out about this. And the emperor ends up inviting him in. And the emperor's like, hey, I've heard you tell a great story about a rhinoceros and a bull. And he's like, I do. And so the emperor invites him in, and he gets to tell stories to the emperor. So an African slave who was eventually taken to Greece, and he tells fables to the emperor and the other rulers. The emperor would use him as an emissary and sort of send him out to talk to people from other countries and stuff like that. He proved that he was a worthy member of society. So because of that, he was able to get the one thing that all slaves want. And that is?
Freedom.
Nope, it was a new car.
What?
Kidding, it was freedom. And so eventually, he was able to earn his freedom. But he kept telling stories because he got rich doing this. They start paying him because we didn't have TV. We really didn't even have books because people were pretty stupid. But they would show up and he would tell the stories about the animals. People were like, that's awesome. And they would just throw gold coins out. They'd make it hail. And they'd throw the coins at him, and he became rich for this. The problem is, he's famous for all of these stories, but he didn't create the stories. He was taking them from other people and making them his own. And those of you who are in composition, what do you call that when you take
Plagiarism.
plagiarism? And so that's what this big chunk of words says here, is that he was a plagiarist. He went through and stole other people's stories from these other countries and was just really good at retelling them and making them his own. He didn't create the stories. He was just good at stealing other people's stories and making them his own.
But everybody was dead.
One day, Greece gets into a war with a neighboring little country area, and the Greek city of Delphi sends the best warriors out to help. They were stronger, faster, more fierce, and so impressed the emperor that the emperor decided after the war he wanted to thank the people of Delphi. So to thank the people of Delphi, he has a two-part thing. He goes, here's what we're going to do to thank the people of Delphi. One, I'm going to send a bag of gold to their city, and everybody in that town gets 3 pieces of gold. 2, what I'm going to do is send Aesop to deliver the gold. And when Aesop delivers the gold, he'll tell them stories, and they get to hang out with like the coolest person ever. And they're like, yay! So Aesop takes the big bag of gold, heads out to Delphi, gets to Delphi, tells his stories. They're cheering like, yay, it's the crazy animal guy. He's like, that's kind of creepy, but thanks. And tells the stories, and eventually it's time to pass out gold to everyone. He's like, all right, gather up, single file line, we're going to start giving out the gold. But before he can hand out the first piece, the warriors stand up. And the warriors go, hey, we would like to talk before you hand out any gold. He goes, all right, that's fine. What do you have? And they go, all right, here's the problem. You're going to give 3 pieces of gold to everyone in town. He's like, yeah. And they're like, well, not everyone did the same amount of work. Us, as warriors, went out there and did the stabbing and the chopping and the killing and the slicing and the dying. And Bob over here only has 1 leg. And so because of that, we think it's only fair that we have 4 pieces of gold and everyone else gets 2 because we really did the work. And Aesop's like, oh, well, I guess. And then the lady folks stand up. The ladies go, no. They go, listen, here's our problem. while you guys were out there doing your camping and having fun in the woods and doing the whole rah, stab, stab thing, we had to stay back and take care of all the little brats that were here in town. And so because of that, we had to do all the extra work, and we wanted to kill people, but we couldn't because children. And so we deserve more of the money than you, so we deserve 4 because you enjoyed what you were doing, so you should only get 2. Plus, everyone knows Bob didn't have a leg before the war. They're like, oh yeah, crazy one-legged Bob. And so before they get a chance to go any further, the farmers stand up, and the farmers go, no. Farmers go, I don't think either one of you should get more money because the farmers had to give up all of our crops to feed you so you wouldn't die, and we had to give food to the women folks, the kids wouldn't die, and we didn't get paid for it because it was the war effort, so we should get more money and you should get less. So all 3 groups start yelling and arguing and fighting back and forth. And Aesop goes, listen, can we just agree that you all did something and you all worked hard at it and so you all deserve some of the gold? And people go, no, who gets more? He's like, do you want me to solve the problem? They go, yay, solve the problem. He goes, all right, fine, I'll solve the problem. He goes, let me help educate you. So he goes and takes the gold. He's like, follow me. Takes the gold, puts in this little wagon, and they follow him on this little wagon, and he goes outside of town to this lake that is just outside of Delphi. Takes the bag of gold, puts it into a little boat. And he sits in the boat and he goes, now watch. And they go, okay. He sits in the boat and starts paddling. Paddle. He gets out in the middle of the lake. He goes, listen, I brought gold to be split among all of you because you worked together and each of you did something, so each of you is going to get gold. But now you are fighting amongst each other, trying to figure out who gets the most. Do you see that working together can help you gain something, but fighting gains you nothing? People go, no, we don't see that at all. Tell us who gets most. He's like, fine. Picks up the bag of gold. He's like, do you see the bag of gold? And they go, yes. He goes, do you see the lake? And they go, yes. No. He goes, yes. Boop. And throws it in. Goes all the way down. Like, ah. He goes, shh. Sits back down. Paddles back to him. Gets out, walks up and goes, listen. If you had worked together, you guys would have come out of this with gold. Because you chose to fight each other, you get nothing. Do you see that working together solves your problems? And the people go, yay, working together! And they did. The town worked together to kill him. And he was killed on the spot in the city of Delphi when he didn't give them the gold and instead threw it away. And that was how Aesop died. All the way to the end, he was trying to be a teacher. Of course, the emperor was not very happy with this because the emperor finds out, like, wait a minute, I gave you a bag of gold. They're like, yeah, it's in the lake. They're like, and I sent you Aesop. I'm like, yeah, we tore him to pieces. He's like, and I'm supposed to approve that? I'm like, yeah, we kind of messed up. He's like, yes, you did. And so he ended up coming in there and torturing the people of Delphi and stuff like that. So Aesop got his revenge. Tomorrow we'll get to our last little bit and we'll get to read our first real fables. And there'll be all kinds of educational.
What?
That's it. Take off.